All right, so let's start from the beginning. Let's just look at the Hello World React application, right? And perhaps let's get it working on Heroku, right? So first, we'll need to install Node, right? That's the first thing, which I believe you already have done so, right? That was the very first assignment, making sure to have Node installed. And the only really reason that we need Node, I mean, we're not going to do any Node development here, right? Not yet, not for a couple weeks. But at least what we need is going to be the npm. npm is Node Package Manager, right? It allows you to install libraries and executables and packages from the command line, right? In particular, we're going to be needing this particular library or this particular package called the Create React App. Right? The Create React App is a command line interface that allows us to, as the name suggests, allows us to create boilerplate, already running, correctly configured and optimized React applications, right, from the command line. So first you'll need to install the latest version of Node. Once you have Node installed, you can type in npm install. -G means global, right, meaning you install globally the following package, Create React App. Right? Once you've done that, then at the command line you can type Create React App and then the name of your application. Right? So in this case, it's my app. It'll go through, it'll download a whole bunch of templates from a repository. It will compile them and it will put them in a directory of the same name that you gave it. So my app. Right? Once you go in there and you do a cd my app, you can then start the application. You can do an npm start. Again, npm. And then start is npm is very much like Maven, MVM, all right? That you can have jobs or tasks, and then you can run the different tasks that have a specific name, right? So when you do npm start, it starts a default application, right? It'll boot up saying, hey, this is the boilerplate React application. We'll do it in a minute, right? Once in there. You can open up with your favorite IDE. Right? I'm going to be using WebStorm, and most of the content in there it's optimized. We're going to just throw away the entire content. We're going to start from scratch, right? Because it does a little bit of some magical things that I want to skip over. I want to start from scratch, from nothing, right? So we're going to blow away the entire directory structure. Well, not all of it. Most of the content in the source directory. And we're going to start off from an index file, just index.js. All right, so let's do that. Let's demo that. Let's see, where are we? So right now we have the Java server here, and I'm going to create a React application that's going to be the client side of this application. Yes, the faculty part of this. So we'll do a create a React app, and it'll be something like webdev, summer2. Maybe this is too long. So this is client, and this is React, and this is Januzzi. Is that too long? Maybe, I don't know. All right, so it's downloading. So you need to be connected to the internet, right? It'll go and download a whole bunch of things. It'll compile and it'll create a directory with that name, right? And we'll open it up in a minute. All right. So while that's going on, let's where is my? Oh, there we go. So in here, we're going to start looking at implementing it in this file called index.js, right? Like the name suggests, index, it means that this is the default starting point of the application, right? And .js is that here, this is a JavaScript file, right? And notice that this JavaScript file is a little bit weird, right? It's got some keywords that we haven't looked at before, right? In particular, it has the import keyword that we haven't used before, right? It's something you would expect maybe in Java, right? Where you have a package or you have modules, and you can import them and then make them available inside of your context. Well, that's exactly what it is, right? This is using the latest version of JavaScript, ES6, where now we have the support of modules. We can break up applications, right, into different modules and then import them, right? No longer do you have issues like in regular Java, in the older versions of Java, JavaScript, sorry, that you have one single namespace, right? And you had to make all these iffy to create your own pseudo modules, right? So we don't have namespace collisions, right? No such thing in ES6, right? Instead, a class can be in its own package, and then you need to import them. You need to export them from the source, and you need to import them from the destination. Right? So here we are loading two packages: the React module and the React DOM module. Right? What we're doing here is that we're using React DOM to render something. Right? What are we rendering? Well, notice the render is taking two arguments. It's taking something that looks like HTML. And the second argument looks like a regular JavaScript command, document.getElementById, right? And that's exactly what they are, right? Notice that HTML has no quotations in there. You see that? That's not a string, right? It's an actual HTML. What the heck is that? Well, what React allows us to do is use a technology called JSX, right? That allows us to extend the JavaScript syntax, right, to be able to embed HTML right beside JavaScript. Right? Oftentimes, we typically discourage folks from generating a language from another language. Like, for instance, if you try to generate HTML from JavaScript or from Java, typically it's very error prone, right? Because you have all these quotations everywhere, and you have to concatenate them, and you have all these pluses everywhere. It's just a mess, right? It's very, very error prone. Okay, it's very easy to miss a quote. It's very hard. So typically we encourage folks to, if you're generating HTML, well, you should be in HTML. Okay, and that's the view of Angular. Angular does this, right? You generate HTML from within HTML. Here, because we are extending the syntax of JavaScript, we can embed HTML without doing concatenations and strings and all this, as if it were just pure HTML, which is nice. It's very, very nice. Okay, so we'll look at this in a minute. Let's see, is this done? All right, it's done. It's done deploying. Let's look at it. Now we have two side by side web server summer 2 2018. One is a server, and it's a Java server, and it's my server, right? Whereas the other one is the client of this, and it's a React client, right? And presumably it's going to be talking to that Java server, right? So they're side by side. Let's go into the client side. Okay, so here we have a couple of things to point out. One of them is this package JSON, package.json, right? That's a file that is the equivalent of a POM file, right? If you remember what a POM file in Java is, that it declares the dependencies of the project. It says this project depends on these other libraries, right? If you don't have those libraries installed, I'm not going to run, right? And what do you do? Typically, you do a Maven clean install, right? And a Maven clean install looks at your POM file. It downloads all the jar files, puts them in the right place, compiles whatever it needs to compile, and then you can run your application. Package.json is identical to this. So if you take a look at it, right, this declares certain dependencies. It says here that the dependencies are that we need the React library installed, at least 16.4.1. We need to have React DOM. So all these libraries are going to be need to be installed here. Okay? Also, notice that it has certain scripts here: start, build, test, eject. Right? This allows you to build the package, like for instance, Maven clean install. Right? Build it, package it, deploy it as in the target, make it into a jar file. Yes. So same thing here. This allows you to build it. Right? So when you're going to deploy this, right, you can do a build, for instance, and it'll create a directory called build, and in there it'll put all the JavaScript, all the HTML, all the JavaScript that you would need to deploy that into a server. Right? Okay, we're going to do something easier than that. Okay, that's it. What else is this doing? What else is here? Ugh, can't talk today. All right, so just like there's a Maven clean install, here there's an npm install, right, which is the equivalent of a Maven clean install. Right, what that install does is that it reads your package JSON, looks at all the dependencies, it downloads all those dependencies, and it copies them into a local directory. The local directory is this one right here, node_modules. Okay, so all those dependencies were deployed under node_modules. Right, what's inside node_modules is the equivalent of jar files in a Java application, right? Jar files typically we don't deploy we don't put in source control, right? Typically we just have the POM file because we can recreate the jar files anytime we want from the POM file. Same thing here. We only really need the package JSON. We don't need node_modules. Okay? We do not want to put that in source control. So make sure that node_modules never makes it to your GitHub repository. All right? So, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. So typically you'll have that in your git ignore. Notice that git ignore is there, and already it declares node modules as to be ignored. Right? It says that anything under there, ignore. I don't want in source control. I don't want anything under coverage. I don't want anything under the build directory. I don't want any of these files under there, no log files. What else is here? So the public directory is where actually everything will be deployed. This is what will be made available from if somebody hits your application. It's what's declared into the public directory. So your node server will be hosting whatever's in the public directory. The only thing in the public directory of interest is the index file. The index file it's a very generic file, but the thing that is of interest here, the only thing of interest here is that it has a div in there. See that? There's a div in there. It's an empty div. Right? There's nothing in it, but it has a very specific name or ID. See that? It says ID root. Okay? That's very important because all the content that will ever be generated by your React application, it's going to be in this div. Every HTML content that will ever be rendered will go into that div. All right, dynamically. It will use underneath. It'll use JavaScript, jQuery, to dynamically add content into that div on the browser, right? Running on the browser. Okay. All right. So that's really the only thing of interest there. Oh my goodness. But the actual source that we're going to be working on is under the source directory, and here in the source directory is where we have the default application that was created for us. Right. This is a starting point. Right. We can go back and we can do an npm start. Npm start will build, will compile, it will convert. That JavaScript thing that looked like JavaScript, but it wasn't really JavaScript. It was like a more modern version of JavaScript. It will compile it down, right, to a JavaScript version that all browsers could understand, right? And not all browsers can understand the new version of JavaScript, okay, the ES6. Not all browsers support it, right? So what React does is that it compiles. Or it compiles down to a more generic version of JavaScript that all browsers are likely to understand, right? And here it is. This is the default application, right? And we know that it's working, right? Welcome to React. Everybody good? All right. So it's not actually compiling. It's called transpiling. It transpiles this modern ES6 JavaScript into an older version of JavaScript that all browsers can understand. Make sense? Soon, all browsers will be able to understand ES6, fully supported, and so we won't need to do the transpiling anymore. All right? Okay. Awesome. All right. So let's open it up. Let's get started. Let's do a hello world. And I'm going to start WebStorm. And I'm going to open up that application we just created. Maybe, come on. All right, so it's loading some older project, which I don't want to. All right, this is loading the Java project from earlier. Let's open up another one. Let's close this one. Let's close this project and instead open a brand new one. The one we just created, we put it under webdev 2018, summer 2, lectures, and there it is, right? So this is our React one. Let's open that. All right, so there's the content we were looking at earlier. This is our source, and this is all our content, right, which is being rendered right here. This is the rendering. So I'm going to blow away all of this. All right, we're going to start from scratch. I'm a believer that things are easy to understand when there's no magic, right, or at least the least amount of magic. So let's since I blew that away, my application is broken, right? So there's that when we do an npm start, it also starts a watcher. It watches the changes in your folder, right? And it automatically transpiles everything, right? And it redeploys and it updates the browser, right? So it has a whole bunch of plugins that allow you to do rapid prototyping. So let's create an index file in here. So this will be index.js. All right. And what we're going to do is that basically what we want to do is inject content into this root directory right here. Into that root div. All right. So the way we do that is that we import React from the React library. We import also React DOM from React DOM. Now this is important, right? So React is the library that understands the fact that we're building applications in terms of components, high-level components. And we're going to be breaking it up into these Lego pieces that we're then going to be put together to build something bigger. What React DOM says that, you can target DOM applications, meaning browser applications. Right? This is where you can go one way or the other. Do you want to target browser applications, the ones that use HTML to render, or you can target native applications, right? And target mobile phones or tablets and whatnot, right? So in a couple of weeks, we're not going to be using React DOM anymore because we're not going to be targeting web applications, browser rendered applications. Instead, I want to render on a phone. And instead, we're going to load a React Native library. Okay, so this is going to be slightly different. All right. So once we've done that, we're going to use React DOM to render. And render takes 2 arguments. The first argument is what is it that you want to render, right? And the second argument is where do you want to put that, right? And where do you want to inject that, right? So let's start with just a hello world. So hello world, right? And then comma, I want to target this root right here, right? So the second argument is using the JavaScript low-level document object. Right, this allows you to parse the document natively using JavaScript, bare bones JavaScript. So document.get element by ID, and I know that the ID is root, right, because that's what it says, root right here. So this is grabbing that div, and this is saying it's injecting whatever you give it here. It's injecting it into that root. Okay, so if we're lucky, it renders the hello world. Right, so whatever I put in there, I can render there. So if any changes I make, right? So if any changes I make here, right, it immediately compiles, right, and updates my browser. All right, excellent. So now what we're going to be starting to look at is, well, okay, fine, that's just a plain old HTML. How do you break this up into multiple pieces? For instance, there'll be a top-level app piece, of which one of those pieces will be a list of courses. And those lists of courses is going to be each individual course row right? And each course row will allow you to navigate maybe to a module list, and a module list will have a list of lessons, and then those lessons will have, so there'll be lots of these pieces of bricks, right, that we're going to put together and build something bigger, right? And we'll do that next.